I claim this world in the name of the Emperor of Man and his Imperium. I bring justice and truth for the loyal, punishment and death for the guilty, and the spoils I take by my own hand. The Imperium of Man encompasses the entire length and breadth of the galaxy, its outposts and fiefdoms beyond all measure of any species who roam its expanse. Commerce, military resources, and ties to the throne world, forming a complex network of untold organizations. There is one alone which requires no direct oversight from prying eyes. For today, we shall elucidate the spacefaring nobility granted immunity from many of the Imperium's laws in exchange for exploring the perilous uncharted regions of space. The infamous privateers of humanity, the Rogue Traders. During the era of the Great Crusade, the Emperor's armies began to roam the stars to reclaim humanity's glory. His first expeditionary fleets requiring untold thousands of fast, smaller flotillas to scout ahead of his advance. Established as the Rogue Traders Militant by the Master of Mankind, these descendants of conquered rulers of the Unification Wars of Terror bent the knee to the Emperor's will or were slain for their defiance. Gifted warrants of trade as tokens of the Emperor's will made manifest, in exchange for such a precious document, each captain would brave the unknown ahead of the armies of mankind with little to no support. Forbidden to ever return to the soil of Holy Terror, these vagabonds relied on themselves alone to prosper or perish. For while many succumbed to the whims of Xenos, others claimed the aliens' voidcraft as spoils of their toil. Even at the height of humanity's dominion of the void, each world pillaged by such scoundrels a trifle when compared to the vast millions which remained unspoiled across the void. Unshackled by imperial bureaucracy, often supplied and re-equipped by the most powerful organizations of the Adeptus Terra, these free agents, despite the peril they faced, thrived as free agents of the Master of Mankind. Enticed by spoils and glory as they braved the depths where even the Astronomicon's light cannot pierce, over the millennia, the Rogue Traders adapted to the ever-shifting nature of exploration, alien culture, and diplomacy. Powerful enough to destroy alien civilizations, which prove dangerous to the Imperium's ideals. Xenos whose domains prove overwhelming, such as Eldar craftworlds, must otherwise be allayed with economic trade. Plundering planets rich with minerals or other valuable resources, many are the buyers of the adepts of Mars, vying for STCs and long-forgotten technologies, or inquisitorial branches seeking relics of bygone ages. The wealth of the most infamous rogue traders exceeding that of even planetary governors, many encompass dozens of voidcraft into the fold of their fleets, whether of military or cargo grade. Cramming each vessel with armies of foot soldiers, labor serfs, prospective colonists, and technicians. Each captain maintains ties to organizations such as the Navis Imperialis, Astra Militarum, Navigator Houses, and Inquisition to negotiate favors. Unable to threaten the true balance of power, which the subdivisions of the Adeptus Terra squabble over, the Rogue Traders as true outcasts are a boon for facilitating underhanded maneuvers made by the elite of the Throne World. Charming, charismatic, and deadly when required, this band of scoundrels employ a variety of companions to join their crews. The bands of misfits, recruited by such pirates resembling those used by inquisitorial agents, due to their lack of constraint or imperial oversight. Whether a pious servant of the Emperor or self-serving tyrant, it is up to each Rogue Trader's discretion as to what manner of allies they shall recruit, whether Eldar exiles, indicted arbiters, questing space marines, tarnished ecclesiarchal priests, or crestfallen commissars. All that matters to their captains are that their subjects are remarkable in their skills, pledged to their crew. Garbed in extravagant regalia, as befits their typically royal heritage, even the lowliest of rogue traders, cobbling together battered starships, inherited from bloodlines of middling legacies, cling to their flamboyant attire, alike to a badge of honor. Remaining a vital component of the Imperium's war machine to this day, even the returned Primarch of the Ultramarines, Rabute Gilliman, sees the value in these exuberant reprobates. 100 of such privateers, invited personally by the Avenging Sun to his fiefdom of Macragge to attend an emergency symposium, This once-in-a-million gathering could not be denied, even by these independent contractors. The once invulnerable domains of Ultramar laid low by the Plague Wars within the first scant years of the 42nd millennium. Guilliman spoke to the assembled rogue traders as equals, as he appointed them as sanctioned pioneers to conquer new worlds in the name of the Emperor. Charged with claiming fertile new lands, to replace those lost to the machinations of chaos. With the birth of the Great Rift across the stars, now more than ever, the Imperium's mettle would be tested. Offering the rogue traders a choice to leave unmolested or stand by his side as trailblazers of a new era for humanity, not one shirked their duty to the Imperium during its time of greatest need. Whether destined for glory or damnation, these souls would not tarnish the legacy of the rogue traders militant. Their worth seen in the eyes of a witness of their earliest deeds, cementing their pride as true champions of humanity's indomitable spirit. Embarking from Macragge within days of the gathering to explore the expanse of the Eastern Fringe, the rogue traders of the Ultima Segmentum would not fail the Lord of Ultramar, nor he who sat upon the Golden Throne. The revivification of purpose within their ranks, arming them with the courage to brave the unknown depths, these wayfarers now stand as the vanguard of a new era of their creed, and shall not be found wanting. Though the original rogue traders militant were drawn from the noble houses of Holy Terror, over the millennia, the incalculable bloodlines broken by the ravages of war have changed the methods used to recruit new members into the fold. Ambition, the singular virtue prized above all prospective rogues, one of the most prominent recruiting grounds for such skippers is the Navis Imperialis. The prerequisite to be capable of helming a Voidcraft, an obvious point of comparison between rogue traders and staff of the Imperial Navy. Those too maverick in their nature to serve as admirals often find meaning outside the strictly conservative norms of such a military organization. Maintaining their contacts made throughout the galaxy during their years of campaigning in the name of the Imperium, coupled with their abilities as capable military commanders, their comrades in arms who still serve can often be called upon for aid, both in terms of combat engagements and resupplies. Leveraging the standing of their Navy kindred until their elevation to higher ranks, it is far better for a shrewd rogue trader to call in a favor from an admiral rather than a commander, and thus must keep a close eye on their career progression. Treasuring their Navy cutlasses as a reminder of their prior service, Navy rogues, whilst retaining much of the uniform trappings of their former life, regardless adopt finery commensurate with high-ranking admirals or war heroes, even should they have never achieved such lofty positions. Another likely recruiting ground for rogue traders is among the ranks of the Astra Militarum, the entrusting of a warrant of trade by Imperial authorities, often a means to convince promising tacticians to veer their armies to perform crusades among the most perilous areas of space. Should they survive the campaigning made in exchange for their warrant, they shall mobilize as an independent army capable of deploying forces which rival entire planetary defense forces in their scale. Devastating minor warp incursions, Xenos colonies, and cultist uprisings. Regardless of their power, the captains of such forces must be careful not to deplete the resources required to fuel and arm their battalions of infantry, vehicles, and Voidcraft. Unlikely to ever replenish their numbers with fresh troops, Militarum rogues often target easily conquered worlds in order to conscript new soldiers to serve at their whim. Some of the more extreme of such traders resorting to recruiting Xenos mercenaries into their auxiliaries, much to the chagrin of Imperial authorities. Typically retaining the insignia of the regiment wherein they once served, Militarum rogues typically wear long coats protected by carapace armor, though those with more influence commission bespoke suits of power armor modified to fit a mortal human's form. Often exchanging valuable plunder with members of both the Inquisition and Officio Assassinorum, whether armed with force fields, digi-weapons, or on rare occasions, Catan phase swords. Many are those who underestimate such hardened veterans of war. Peculiarly, another source for recruitment of rogue traders are members of the Adeptus Administratum, the scions of this seemingly unconventional organization for spacefaring life, nonetheless armed with ruthless cunning and skill at political intrigue. Precise in their application of bureaucratic meddling, though their use of force is rare, even Space Marines can be deployed by these rogue traders by virtue of their mastery of political maneuvering. Statesmen, capable of delegating tasks to their lieutenants, Administratum rogues are meticulous in their fostering of competition between their underlings in order to bolster their effectiveness. Employing assassins rather than armies to accomplish their goals, their eschewing of ostentatious garments belies their virtue held of remaining covert, dressed as they are in monkish habits of muted colours. Never unarmed despite outward appearances, an administratum rogue typically hides digital lasers, power blades, and other concealable weapons upon their person, always wary to protect themselves from upstart minions at their disposal, hoping to drive a blade in their back. Merchants, another likely source for rogue traders to be drawn. Their obvious expertise at establishing trade routes, industry, and exchanging goods for favours is a potent means to curry favour with authorities, both Imperial and Xenos alike. Experts at charging extortionate rates for much-needed supplies from their buyers. These unscrupulous dealers care not if a planet shall have its populace starve, should they not choose to purchase their wares. Capitalizing on the ruling class's need for exotic finery, often paid for with tithes made by their planet's downtrodden, merchant rogues form cartels and federations which span the galaxy as intertwined corporations forged from greed. The feudal nature of imperial bureaucracy ripe to form lucrative markets to be exploited. Such rogue traders deploy their small private armies only when expendable mercenary might can't be bought to enact their trade wars. Not to be underestimated for their military acumen, the most successful merchant rogues are as comfortable within trade negotiations as they are committing surgical strikes of enemy outposts. Dressed alike to gaudy peacocks, displaying their wealth for all to see, within the construction of their glistening jewelry are hidden various hidden weapons, which shall defend them from enemies which pass through their entourage of highly costly bodyguards. Planetary governors and imperial commanders, tired of the drudgery of their jurisdiction, also take to the rogue trader livelihood to escape monotony. Usually taking to pastures new, once deposed or replaced by their people, or even the Adeptus Terra. Often escapees of the destruction of their fiefdom by chaos or even Xenos invasion, such disgraced governors typically abandon their people to death as they rally what planetary defense forces remain to serve as the personal defense fleet of their new calling. Whether seeking penance by finding new worlds for their populace to inhabit, or selfishly escaping their responsibilities, regardless of their intent, such individuals are highly charismatic, as is evident by their subjects' loyalties, despite their own failings. Driven by loss and the hopes of a brighter future, the followers of the Governor Rogues are adept at recolonizing efforts, if not military campaigns. Their speed at claiming new worlds for the Imperium, often enough to earn favors from powerful allies and the bequeathment of a warrant of trade. Lastly, the rarest organization for rogue traders to be drawn from is that of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition. For those usually destined for a lifetime of service to such a powerful organization are appointed as rogue traders, not by choice. Offered a warrant of trade as an alternative to death due to political maneuvering by the Inquisition, often by members of the Ordo Xenos, such fallen Inquisitors are too valuable a resource to waste, and as such are given new purpose. Though losing access to their near-limitless resources, Inquisitor rogues still retain connections and power befitting their former service. Their duty to root out corruption and heresy, supplanted by a need to seek out and eliminate Xenos threats. Acolytes given warrants of trade, thankful to have escaped a fate too terrible to consider. It is regardless a bitter pill for more senior Inquisitors to swallow, considering the many infamous deeds required to rise to such prominence. Much has already been mentioned of the significance of the Imperial Warrant of Trade, yet the scope of this invaluable document requires explanation unto itself. Not to be confused with a merchant charter granted by the Adeptus Administratum, the authority granted by the Warrant of Trade is comparable to that held by planetary governors, inquisitors, and even Space Marine chapter masters. Passed down from generation to generation as the single most powerful possession of any rogue trader, the original such documents of Imperial law were personally gifted by the Master of Mankind to the pioneers of the Rogue Traders Militant, with others bearing signatures of the Primarchs and Generals of the Great Crusade of yore. Coming into the possession of individuals only through inheritance or degree by the High Lords of Terra, those who bear such a license are sanctioned by the God Emperor of Mankind, freedom to judge all cultures outside the Imperium's domains as they see fit. The crime of obtaining or misusing a warrant of trade against the ideals of the Imperium, punishable by death, to not only the holder, but all with ties to their influence. The Inquisition prosecuting such renegade rogue traders without mercy. every rogue trader typically returning to the domains of the Imperium every few years to unload cargo, resupply, recuperate, and recruit new hands. Before embarking onto ventures new, the Adeptus Terra removes their autonomy when within Imperial jurisdictions. Wary of their susceptibility to fall to corruption or become Xenos sympathizers, the Adeptus Terra verifies their actions during voyage before allowing them to return to the Void for plunders anew. Each warrant tailor-made to those who receive them, due to its ties to the Master of Mankind. Such a document is beyond reproach, and thus its directives can only be repealed by the most powerful leaders of the Imperial bureaucracy. Divinely sanctioned by the God Emperor, so powerful is such a deed that High Lords of Terra for millennia have used the warrant as a means to bribe powerful political rivals to abandon their pursuit of power in deference to a life of freedom. Such misuse of the warrant, requiring the drafting of less powerful certifications, known as the Letters of Marquis, regardless of the limitations in comparison. Many a rogue trader gladly accepts such letters due to their still impressive permissions. Letters of Marquis, often restricted to dealings within a specific sector of space. To better monitor a rogue trader's actions, such documents, unlike the warrant, are also unable to be inherited, and thus must be returned to the High Lords of Terra for renewal. Both documents demanding specific duties, such as the regular patrolling of crucial worlds known as Trooping the Colors. Other conditions demand a pledge of military might to outlined planetary defense forces, or tithes of unique resources. For even though the rogue traders are alike to uncaged birds, the chain of Imperial oversight, though slim, remains shackled to their proverbial ankles. The issuing of a new warrant of trade, marked with expensive ceremonies, such priceless permits are acquired through a variety of means. Many achieve warrants through military service, as recognition made to Lord Generals or High Admirals who have won dozens of crusades in the name of the Emperor. Their peerless leadership of armadas and regiments, unquestionable. Often training such souls to never retire from active duty, their life spent as a rogue trader is a fitting reward for such restless souls. Particularly committed officials, willing to be self-serving in their rise through the ranks of bureaucracy, are gifted a warrant of trade to remove them from the game of politics. Their ruthless efficiency, a threat to be snuffed out by their rivals. Though underhanded tactics are not uncommon within the domains of Imperial life, nonetheless, outcomes requiring no bloodshed to its citizens are preferable, especially if their skills can be put to good use elsewhere. Other warrants are offered not as a reward, but as a means of escape, particularly should the willing submission of the involved party to assume the life of a rogue trader prevent a costly and bloody crusade to depose them from power. The numerous Lords Militant offered such a warrant, eventually depleting their armies to the point of irrelevancy. Thus, once issued, it is a reliable means to prevent jaded commanders from turning their attentions to the High Lords of Terra. Exiles among the last to receive the warrant of trade, those caught or suspected of assassinating their rivals within the courts of Imperial hierarchies over centuries of tenure, are set upon by coalitions of their political opponents. Banding together to procure a warrant of trade as a means to pacify such threats to their own power, the idea of rejecting such an honor, once proliferated by the Master of Mankind himself, is a gesture unacceptable to any deemed worthy. Signaling a total defeat of their chosen ambitions, despite the warrant's excessive freedoms, many deem such a document as a curse, or even a badge of shame. Such individuals often turning renegade as a last-ditch effort to use such a document to harm the Imperium. Often biding their time until their rivals have retired to the tranquility of garden worlds in their old age. Many reports have found such retired officials assassinated in their bedchambers, despite their private armies who guard their well-being. Permitted to settle new worlds in the name of the God Emperor, launch punitive strikes against planets who reject the Imperium's rule, or reclaim those erupting with rebellion. Though the role of a rogue trader is primarily exploratory, they also bear enough firepower to decimate entire worlds in the name of the Throne World. Those who shirk their duties, as outlined by the Warrant of Trade, are hunted down mercilessly. The agents seeking to bring them to justice draw not only from the Inquisition, but also Administratum, and even Space Marine chapters on rare occasions. The revocation of a Warrant of Trade, tantamount to a death knell of a rogue trader house's fortunes. Though some cling to their sundered glory, none can escape the eroding effects of the loss of their most precious document. Yet rumors also persist that with the gift of a Warrant of Trade, clandestine members of the Officio Assassinorum also may be placed within the ranks of a rogue trader's retinue. a contingency to strike should they turn traitor, activated within the heart of their own crews. The captains of the rogue trader fleets largely descended from noble bloodlines. By virtue of their crew service, so too shall they be part of a legacy of these millennia-old dynasties. Ascended from the mundane lives of most imperial citizens, these souls who roam the stars are all promised greatness in their ventures, each an invaluable component in these machines of commerce and exploration. At the pinnacle of their power, capable of commanding hundreds of ships, each housing thousands of foot soldiers, armored vehicles, and servants, it is not uncommon for rogue traders to hold dominion of entire star systems, should their fortunes burgeon. Designating heirs to carry out their legacies should they grow old and weary, most rogue traders refuse to worsen within the confines of a comfortable bed, and would rather die steering their ship into the unknown one last time. Siblings of such veteran wayfarers squabbling for succession in the wake of their demise, typically those second, third, or later in line of succession, must eke out a living of their own should they not plot to usurp their dynasty from their older siblings. Tutored by among the best instructors, intellectuals, and mentors available to their vast wealth, patriarchs and matriarchs of such bloodlines spare no expense in teaching their children the skills necessary to sustain their legacies. Imbued with every conceivable advantage in life, whether measured in coin, influence, freedom, or other privileges, regardless of the efforts of their mothers and fathers, these so-called children of destiny often squander such luxuries. The decadence and hedonistic delights offered to them, encouraging laziness to take hold of many. Such are the barbs of finery that require shrewd rogue traders to sire several children as a contingency. Assigning their children to command smaller vessels within their flotillas, each is given a stipend to spend as they see fit, and charged to embark upon the great unknown with no aid henceforth. Many such dynasties testing their children to best the terrors of the void alone. Those who are lost to the unforgiving dangers which lurk within are weeded from the bloodline, as those who return claim their birthright as proven heirs. Plots of rival dynasties attempting to ambush and inconvenience such pilgrims during their test of inheritance. It is not uncommon for distant cousins or thrice-removed relatives to plan accidents to befall their bloodkin in efforts to better their own standing. Wit, instinct, and perception among the most prized traits of a rogue trader. By these attributes are the most capable future captains discerned in these brutal trials, which test their resourcefulness. Always honing their martial skill in combat, political maneuvering, and naval strategies, those who become lax in their training often are bested by their more competitive contemporaries. The most long-established dynasties who have retained their warrant of trade, respected for their ability to foster capable inheritors to their claim. Those gifted a warrant within their own lifetime are regardless seen as dangerous upstarts who are susceptible to withering decline. Comparable to the most ancient navigator houses in influence, the burden resting on rogue traders made worthy by inheritance is great. For the galaxy is perilous as it is, without the comparison of forebears adding further weight to their actions. Internal struggles caused by the power vacuums left by perished rogue traders, causing factionalism within their dynasties. Even when alive, the endless act of intimidation, assassination, and ingratiation made by their subjects requires constant monitoring. On rare occasions, civil war erupts within rogue trader houses, each conspirator taking great pains in obfuscating such actions to prevent rival houses from capitalizing on perceived vulnerabilities. Seconding their children to serve within imperial institutions to, quote, do their time. In order to prevent idleness and weakening of the bloodline, many rogue traders send their children to serve within the ranks of the Imperial Navy, Astra Militarum, or Administratum until they are required to return to their house. Despised by those they serve with as unworthy, preening vagabonds, though such prospective future captains learn many valuable skills, they must regardless bear the ire of their compatriots for years on end. Such ignominy festering as such low-born servants of the Imperium rise through the ranks, especially within the Navis Imperialis. Inheritance rogue traders are an affront to established imperial dogma, both spiritually and ethically. Scrambling to confront vast flotillas which appear unannounced within imperial strongholds. On occasion, the Imperial Navy has fired upon rogue traders returning from the fringes of space, believing them to be aggressors to the Emperor's domains. by virtue of the many branches of imperial organizations to which a rogue trader can be drawn, and the differing cultural beliefs of each dynasty which has served the millennia. Several archetypal designations have been assigned to these bands of privateers. As belies their roguish moniker, the foremost attribution to such wayfarers is the scoundrel archetype, persons who subsist on guile, arrogance, and self-assured confidence. Whether bluffing their way into important imperial endeavors, the bedchamber of a highborn noble's daughter, or gambling others' fortunes to line their own pockets, these reckless scoundrels are proverbial wolves in sheep's clothing. Never resorting to violence as the impetus of their dealings, it shall nevertheless be ready as the last. Their risk-inclined methods seen by many as reckless, as they claim the spoils of a life lived in the thick of danger. Daring, debonair, and capable buccaneers, their small retinues enable their survival, despite plunging headfirst into seemingly suicidal acts of thievery. Merchant princes, the next of the archetypes. These greedy souls abhor overt displays of violence and much prefer negotiation, trade, and bargaining. Achieving power through lucrative trade contracts, which shall benefit all who partake. Though many a soul has become rich aiding the endeavors of a merchant prince, none have claimed spoils even close to that which they benefit. Believing military engagements to be a waste of resources, if not life particularly, their employment of armies are used more as a symbolic representation of their power, rather than a force to be mobilized. Using their amassed armies as protectors of their vast fortunes, each turn their guns against would-be pirates and Xenos raiders, as they are paid handsomely for their efforts to keep them loyal. Negotiating rights to exclusive trading networks throughout their domains. On occasion, such dynasties are reported to imperial authorities for dealing with aliens and lost human civilizations, which are in open conflict with the Imperium. The archetype of the explorer, obvious to their intent, the genuine love of uncovering the mysteries of the universe is enough to instill within these rogue traders purpose. Relentlessly delving into the unknown as they investigate never-before-seen regions of the galaxy. Every blank space of Imperial star charts is a quest to bring insight to future generations. Highly intelligent and inquisitive souls, due to the benefit of their venturing, it is rare for warrants of trade from such houses to be rescinded. Imperial authorities willing to allow their foolhardy ventures into likely hovels of slavering Xenos, or fell entities as of yet unearthed. Equipped with envirosuits and weapons aplenty to preserve their expedition teams, each autopsy of alien life, or relic recovered from some long-forgotten empire, is precious beyond measure to the explorers. Surviving encounters upon hungry death worlds, ghostly maiden worlds, or resurgent tomb worlds, many believe the Emperor himself watches over these souls, as their uncanny ability to escape death suggests the Master of Mankind sees in them the spirit of his great crusade. Shirking many responsibilities of a rogue trader, such as mercantile duties and military aid to Imperial allies, the greatest woe of an explorer is their need to return to the fold of the Imperium when close to making exciting new discoveries. Missionary archetypes believe humanity to be the sole inheritors of the galaxy, and as such, seek out human colonies to reunite with the Imperium, while driving Xenos out of their domains. Fervent disciples of the Imperial Creed, ignorance of the Emperor's divinity is an inexcusable offense. The guns of these rogue traders all too willing to be turned on those who refuse to adhere to the commandments of the Ecclesiarchy. Seeing no value in alien life, technologies, or alliances, the missionaries cull any Xenos which stand in their way, refusing to offer beneficial trade to even downtrodden races, as they squander profit for land seized by purging flame. The diplomat archetypes seek to spread the gospel of the Imperium across all corners of the void, tolerant through pragmatism above belief, as they support willing Xenos should their efforts be aligned in purpose. Often sparking conflicts which contravene Imperial interests, the diplomats regardless believe themselves to be vindicated in their actions as the sole true inheritors of the Emperor's truth. Witness to the extent of terrible foes seeking to destroy humanity entire. These proselytizers, regardless of their intolerance of some alien species, believe that unless some alliances are made, all living things shall perish equally. Often siding with elements of the craft world Eldari, who have survived the near extinction of their own race via hubris. These ancient creatures allow such rogue traders safe passage in the heart of their craft worlds, in order to negotiate mutually beneficial ceasefires and truces. Possessing an incredible instinct, engaging the true intent of their foes, Diplomatic rogue traders are not beyond firing upon their opposition after a mere first glance, knowing that shows of strength can often crumble the resolve of their soon-to-be allies. Traders militant regard their warrant of trade as a means to enact conflict in the name of the Imperium, where its more stolid organizations fear to tread. The lowborn of humanity regarding their documents as warlord warrants due to their reputation, untethered generals and admirals from the Imperial war machine. Their independent armies often fight by the side of Astra Militarum, Navis Imperialis, and even Adeptus Astartes deployments as gratefully received support contingents. Unconstrained by overall military command during their deployments, these independent mercenaries are regardless united in their intent to fight in the name of the Emperor, as proven veterans of countless wars from their prior service. Drafting new soldiers from conquered populations, peculiarly as a breed apart from most rogue traders, many an Imperial governor or senior of an Adepta often refuses the authority of their warrant of trade. Knowing their sense of honor and mutual reverence of the Emperor to prevent them from using underhanded tactics or strike against their authority, it is normal for traders militant to with time diminish their armies through attrition, spending what coin and political favors they have to replenish their numbers. Those dynasties who have survived the millennia are a force to be reckoned with due to their prosperity against the odds. Last of the archetypes are the psychopaths, rogue traders driven mad by the perils of the void as their desires for power overtake their sense of reason. Derived from numerous backgrounds, it is a fair claim that for any soul to possess a warrant of trade, at least a seed of psychopathy must be present. Yet for such powerful individuals to allow such a trait to burgeon is a sorry state of affairs for their bloodline. Eager to enact purges of dissidents, Xenos outposts, or entire populations of rebellious worlds, psychopath traders, regardless of their flaws, are valued for their willingness to commit atrocities as expendable forces of the Imperium's will. The most deranged of such despots, believing themselves equal to the Primarchs of the Great Crusade, as they enact gratuitous acts of slaughter, their flagships bear ridiculously grandiose names, such as Scourge of Xenos, Emperor's Divine Light, or Grand Conqueror. The most likely to have their warrants of trade revoked by Imperial authorities, those who are not expunged from the pages of history, venture to the farthest fringes past Imperial space in order to establish regimes of cruelty as alongside similar detritus of madmen and tyrants. In order to roam the stars sustainably for centuries on end, the only resource arguably more precious than a warrant of trade is that of a starship, and for those of exceptional power, one is not enough. The wings to which a rogue trader takes flight, free from much of Imperial constraint. A captain's flagship is fitted with the finest of weapons, armor plating, shielding, and crewmen. Each ship of their fleet a mobile hive city in all but shape. Thousands if not millions of souls are the responsibility of their aristocratic masters, whether armsmen, ship gunners, galley masters, chirurgeons, tech savants, artisans, or labor serfs. No ship of the Imperium capable of flight without a contingent of the Adeptus Mechanicus to monitor its complex machineries. Typically, such adepts of Mars stay within the confines of the ship's enginarium, as they tend to the heart of the Voidcraft. Ecclesiarchal priests roaming the halls of such vessels to maintain moral purity even within the midst of scoundrels. Each rogue trader must also tend to the needs of their navigator, as their authority is not as a subject of their captain, but an equal. Distinctly other from the Imperium as they roam the galaxy, many a low-born hive scum willingly joins the crew of a rogue trader for the mere prospect of escaping the smog-suffocating confines of their homeworld. The promise of adventure, riches, and discovery a tantalizing offer which most are never given. It is rare in the extreme for any downtrodden soul to deny the chance of serving on a starship of a rogue trader. Each broadside of their Voidcrafts capable of destroying entire city structures with a single barrage. Many are quick to adopt a sense of superiority over others, now as part of a dynasty of adventurers, buccaneers, and trailblazers. Spending decades within the bowels of their ship before even standing on the soil of a planet. Over time, the cold breeze of distant worlds, wildlife, and sounds of nature seem peculiar to these ship dwellers. Marking relative daytime and nighttime cycles through either hymnal chants, chiming gongs, or sermons to the Emperor, the life of a labor serf aboard a rogue trader's vessel is far more comfortable than that of a hive dweller. Such spacefaring behemoths, requiring decades if not centuries to construct, If anything can be said about Imperial technology, it is built to last. Many of such colossal barges remaining in service after 1,000 years sailing the stars. Having access to numerous patterns and configurations of ships, with exception given to the flagships of the Primarchs, the Gloriana-class starships, rogue traders have access to even the largest of voidcraft, such as Grand Cruisers. Most widespread of all starships of a rogue trader's flotilla are the Sword-class frigate, a staple of the Imperial Navy which has reliably repelled invaders of Imperial outposts for millennia. Falchion-class frigates, a newer model of escort vessel, also overwhelmingly deployed by the Navis Imperialis. The prize of Forge-World Voss acts as a weaker replacement for the ever-diminishing Sword class, reconstructed from Sea's Chaos Warfleet plans of the Infidel-class Raider. Last of the frigates are Firestorm-class ships, derived from Battlefleet Obscurus, an incredibly maneuverable voidcraft designed to combine the speed of an escort craft with the armaments of a cruiser. The cruisers of a rogue trader, widespread in their designs, whether originally light, standard, heavy, battle, or even grand classification in construction, all are heavily modified, often with archaeotech both of human and Xenos origin. Most constructed on the Imperial world of Carduniash within the Ultima Segmentum. This training ground of the Navis Imperialis is renowned for its creation of Luna, Tyrant, and Dominator-class battleships. Ambition-class cruisers, a rare find, produced at the dockyards of Kormisoshi within the Calixis sector. These craft are exclusively made only for the wealthiest of Private clients. Comparable in firepower to Luna or Tyrant-class cruisers, these luxuriously outfitted vessels eschew built-in redundancies favored by the Imperial Navy and replaces them with opulent crew quarters. Karak-class transports, necessary for the most mercantile of rogue traders. These massive freighters contain the most valuable spoils of exploration back to Imperial space, each protected by swarms of escort ships. Set upon by eager consumers of foodstuffs, machine components, luxury goods, and other untold plunder, the lifeblood of many a rogue trader relies on these Goliath transports to turn their loot into profit. Conquest-class star galleons are rare in the extreme, and used almost exclusively by rogue traders, first constructed by order of the Master of Mankind himself at the inception of the Great Crusade. Freighters of immense size and artifice, spacefarers can live entire lifetimes among the stars and never see one of such relics of the past. These reminders of the first rogue traders militant to roam past the confines of the Sol system, highly sought after by the inheritors of their creed. Relatively underarmed and fragile in comparison to their more modern alternatives. Regardless, these heirlooms of the past are guarded jealously by only the strongest of rogue traders, mainly as a symbol of their influence. Pilfering Xenos voidcraft on occasion to bolster their flotillas. Such vessels are manned by mercenaries hired by rogue trader captains, their value in revealing potential spoils too great to ignore, despite the prospect of censure which their presence invites. For while a rogue trader's legacy is measured in wealth, influence, and reputation, not even they are beyond the judgment of the Imperium's authority, and many a privateer of the stars have had their wings clipped, venturing too close to heresy. I'm sorry, Senior Arbitrator. You must have me confused with someone else. I'm no petty criminal. I'm a legitimate businessman with legitimate business interests. And if you doubt me, I have a certain document to show you. This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. Life can often be constrained by the boundaries of order, bureaucracy, and regulations, for such measures diminish the potential of adventurous and industrious souls. Exploration of the unknown, understanding of the world around us, and the pushing of boundaries crucial to the species' prosperity. It is nonetheless all too easy to make a habit of breaking rules for one's own personal gain at the expense of others. To thrive is to bring value to your fellow man, for by undertaking risks do we challenge the norms of our understanding. Yet without constraint, experimentation can go too far and endanger those it intends to serve. So be measured yet fearless in your risk taken in efforts to thrive. Yet should you succeed, be sure to prepare for the storm to come. For no soul is guaranteed repayment for risks unrewarded, and no matter one's prosperity, there is always an impending storm to brave on the horizon.